Well, we're doing a study of the pencils right now, yes. So we're just kind of going and seeing how we can affect control on these pencils. So you're trying to make a gradient like this for me. So from light to dark. So that was and I'm gonna write next to it. This was my 4B. And then I'm gonna do one with my HB. So I'm gonna start with my hardest part of the gradient and go to a lighter. Also, who here had a teacher in school who bullied them about how they held their pencils? Did anybody have a teacher who was like, no, you have to hold your pencil like this? Nobody? Wow. Okay.
I recall on that second day the teacher was showing me how to hold my pencil. I don't remember exactly how she did, but I'm not sure if I still do it the way that teacher told me how to hold it or not. But I believe, I recall that I'm showing how to hold it.
So.
I don't know if I'm still doing it the way they really showed me how to do it, but I recall
But you don't have to hold your pencil any particular way here. You can hold it at the back. You can hold it like some artists like to hold their pencils like this with Yep, any way you want to hold your pencil is okay. Any way that it helps you make a mark is okay. Play with different positions for holding your pencil. I'm actually going to grab a few more HBs.
I can see that.
Okay, so now that you've done some gradients and you've seen what the difference is between a soft pencil and a hard pencil, what are some of the things that you've observed? What are some things that you just figured out when you tried the difference between a hard, like a hard would be like the H?
A soft pencil is more for like shading in, and a hard pencil is more for like the outline.
Right? Yeah, you can't really, even if you push really hard with a hard pencil, you're not going to get a very dark color and you're just kind of going to dent your paper in, right?
The softer pencil you can shade in without easy to soften, without scratching out your drawing.
Yeah, so it just kind of drops a lot more pigment on the paper. Okay, so now I want you to draw an eye on your paper. Just draw an eye. It's okay. Just a quick drawing. This is not a test. It's not like, oh, I didn't draw a good eye. I'm a terrible artist. I just want you to draw an eye. Just quickly an eye, the way you think an eye looks. The reason we're doing this is because I want you at the end of the class to have something to look back on and go, oh, I did learn something. Good? Okay. Cool. Is everybody done drawing their eyes? Oh, so this is a good time to introduce you to your erasers too. You should have a kind of a square eraser, and you'll have this gray kind of gooey eraser somewhere on the table. The square eraser it's a vinyl eraser. It's a harder eraser, so kind of see what happens when you go through your gradient with your hard eraser. And then this one is called a kneaded eraser, and you can actually tear this in two, like tear this in half. Some of them are torn in half. You can actually mold it like putty. So they're good for if you don't want to like make a line, if you just kind of want to lighten up like a little bit of your gradient, like you just want to make some highlights on like cheekbones or something like that, that's when you'd use the kneaded eraser. Also, if you need to do like a really fine spot of erasing, you can kind of make these into a tip, and then you can kind of like do like very small areas. And you can always cut these, the vinyl ones, too, if you need to make erase something small.
What's this called? Gradient?
This is called a gradient. So this what we did here, this is called a gradient.
What's the
Yeah, you can use that to buffer up your lines. That's one of the ways you can use it. And then you can also get one of these funky little things. This is a Tombow mono eraser. We don't have them here, but I can maybe look at getting us some. And
do
you
you spell
can
that?
actually draw with those. They're like, and I'll probably actually get us some eraser pencils. That's kind of like this. Tombow, T-O-M-B-O.
What, the two erasers, is a vinyl and a what?
So this one's a vinyl eraser, the hard one. It's just a harder eraser. And this is a kneaded eraser. Kneaded, K-N-E-A-D-E-D, kneaded, as in dough, as in you can squish it and
Makes sense.
shape it and turn it into something else. Okay, so everybody's done drawing their eyes? Okay, so now I want to talk about something real quick. It's called, has anybody ever heard of the fundamentals of art or the fundamentals of drawing?
Is that a book?
There's books named The Fundamentals of Drawing, sure. Fundamentals of Drawing is basically like, if you're gonna learn to do anything, there's gonna be certain basic things that you need to learn. So the fundamentals of drawing are usually 5 fundamentals. They are broken down into line, form, space, edge or texture, and color and composition is kind of where they all fit together. We're not gonna go like I said, we're not gonna do a bunch of theory. We're gonna learn this stuff by practicing it. So today we're going to talk about line and shape. So line can be, if I show you on the little screen here again. So there's lots of different kinds of lines. If you look at a piece of wood, right, there's lots of lines on this piece of wood. Some of them are very stark lines. It's very clear lines over here, but then this line kind of becomes thicker, and then here it almost disappears. You almost can't see it at all. So that's one of the things to look at when you look at lines. Then if you look at a jar, if I asked you to draw this jar, you might go, okay, there's my jar, but you don't actually see this line on the jar at all, right? You know it's there, but you don't see it. So you kind of leave that line out. You might, if you're drawing this line, you might draw the top of it that you can see, and you might draw the bottom part of it, but leave the middle part out completely and only...
It's a shape that you want to give it. You would just draw the basic lines.
Yeah,
You want to give it the shape that you see.
so that's form or shape. That's a different component to drawing, but we'll get to that in a minute. So line is one of the formal components of drawing. Then one of the other things is shape. So if you look at an eye, let's go back to our eye drawing here. You can break anything up into basic shapes, essentially, right? What's the basic shape of an eye? Oval. Okay, so the lines are in an almond shape, yeah. What about the eyeball?
Circle.
Circle, right? Sphere, not circle. I'm sorry, I don't know where I put the eye thing. Okay, we'll just start from scratch. Okay, so
Or a ball shape. Sphere, ball shape, or
yeah, sphere is a circle, and sphere is not the same thing though. Okay, so I've got some of these for you guys. So we're going to draw some spheres. We're going to just start by drawing some spheres, and yes, they're bingo balls. Okay, so I'm going to hand everybody a bingo ball. You can actually use the piece of paper in your portfolio that has a circle drawn on it. So this is how I want you to do it. We're going to look at the bingo ball. You're going to put it on a piece of black paper, and the reason is in here the lights are very diffuse. So if I don't put any shadow on my bingo ball, there's very little definition to it. I'm going to give you each a little elastic like that so your bingo ball doesn't go everywhere. But so you're going to use a piece of black paper underneath your bingo ball. I'm just going to, for now, just put it next to it so you can see how the shadow wraps around the ball, if that makes sense. Okay? So that's what the black paper in here is for. Don't throw it away because we're going to draw it on it later on with pastels. Okay. Yeah, there we go. He's got it. Okay, so black paper underneath, ball on top of black paper on the elastic the way that she has it. Do you see how when you look at the ball on this piece of paper, it's almost not there. You almost can't see it because there's a white background behind it. So some of the lines are almost invisible on that bowl. Okay, so everybody has a bowl and a piece of paper. So now go about drawing that bowl. So you can grab one of the white pieces of paper from the portfolio, which I don't know where I put it, with the circles drawn on them.
The 2 circles or the 1 circle?
You can grab the one with the 2 circles. I gave you extra circles in case you want to do it again. Let's keep the one with the 1 circle for drawing the actual eye at the end. There we go.
So, question, we have balls sitting on the black paper, and now we're taking out the 2 circles.
The 2 circles. So you grab the one with the 2 circles that I drew for you. You're going to have your bowl sitting on the black paper so that it's got some contrast, some definition, something that you can see. And then you're going to look at your bowl and you're going to draw what you see, not what you think is there, but what you see. So really take a careful look at it. You don't have to draw the lines. I already kind of drew the lines for you. You can erase some of them. Also just turn your bowl so that you can't see the number. I want you to just see the plain sphere. Does that make sense?
So Sarah, you're saying that the circle that you drew is already there on the outline of the ball?
Yeah, you can use the circle that's already on the paper as your outline, and then just go and shade in that. And I gave you 2 circles, so you can actually try doing it twice. So do one rough and then do one more neatly. I'll show you some of the tools we have here too, that you can play with if you want to. So there's some of these in the front, and actually better yet, there's some brushes. I'll show you how to use a brush when you're doing and you can choose if you want to use this or not. You don't have to. But if I take my sphere and I take one of my softer pencils and I go and I look where my shadow wraps around this bowl. So for me it looks like there's shadow here. And I'm kind of just roughly shading it. So there's a big white streak over here. I can erase that at the end if I wanted to. So I'm just roughly, and you can always erase around your circle too to clean it up. You don't have to be neat. If I'm gonna shade a large area, I like to hold my brush or my pencil further back and on its side. Don't push very hard initially. You can always build layer on layer. You never want to make grooves in the paper when you draw.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
Am I doing that on this circle on the paper or drawing the ball inside the circle?
No, you're doing it. The circle is the bowl.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's okay. It doesn't matter if you drew another bowl. That's okay. I didn't want people to sit for like an hour trying to make a round thing on a paper. So that's why I drew some circles for you guys on the paper to start off with, just to make it easier. So now so there's something we're going to talk about a lot is layering in art. And you almost never do something in one layer. So I'm using one of my softer pencils. So this is a 4B. You can use any of the Bs. And I'm just kind of getting some shade around the edges of my bowl where I can see it. Now I'm going to take my paintbrush. You can use one of these. This is a smudger, but I like the paintbrush for this. And I'm actually just going to smudge it with a soft, clean, dry paintbrush. I'm just going to move the graphite around to make my shadow softer. Especially if you're doing something like an eyeball or skin, this is a very good technique to use. You're never going to completely erase your pencil lines either doing this. So you got to be mindful of your pencil lines that you're making, or the strokes, the pencil strokes that you're making, I should say. So there's no part of this bowl that's completely white. So I'm actually spreading this graphite all over the space that's part of my bowl. And now that I'm happy with my first layer, now I can go do a second layer. I can go make it darker. So maybe I want to take a darker pencil. So maybe I like dramatic. So I'm going to go real dark with this. I'm going to go for an 8B. And I'm actually going to go make some of those edges even darker. I'm actually just going to move this a little bit. So where I really see a lot of black, and you're looking at your bowl, not how I'm doing it. So my bowl, there's no right or wrong way to do it. This is just practice. This is just a study of a sphere. So I'm going to use my 8B and I'm going to go dramatic with some of these edges where I see it like really dark. Like there's a dark edge over here too. But then I might decide that I made it too dark up here, so I can use my kneaded eraser to take some of those pencil lines away. And then I'm going to use my brush again, or maybe I decide that for this one I want to use the smudge stick. And if you want smudge sticks, there's smudge sticks on the table. Hi, Catherine. Catherine's our manager. She's awesome.
Chicken don't mind me.
Correct. Catherine also does art. She likes art too. She's the one that makes all of this possible for us. You can only do so much if you don't have support though. Okay, so I'm using my smudge stick now, so you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference between the smudge stick and the brush. The brush softens up the pencil strokes a little bit less than the smudge stick. And then I might want to go clean up the edges around with one of my erasers when I'm done. And then I'm going to say, okay, I can see a line running down my middle of my bowl there, so I'm going to actually use this eraser to draw the line on my bowl. But it's a little bit longer. It goes down to here. So you don't have to leave that white part out. I'm going to walk around if you guys have any questions for me. Okay, so for the smudge sticks, if you got it all messy, if you actually went and you drew a line on the paper with the smudge stick after you got it dirty, you'll actually end up with a line. So sometimes you don't want that. And that's where you grab one of these things. And you can also use these to clean your erasers or sharpen your pencils if you're that anal. But that's how you clean your smudge stick.
That's sandpaper?
Yeah, it's sandpaper. And then it's just layers of sandpaper, so you just tear them off and can have clean sandpaper underneath. So. And then if you're like, oh, I don't want this corner on my eraser, you can actually clean that on the same sandpaper. Or if you want to shape your eraser, it's great for that too. Or, and I know a lot of artists that do this to like get an edge on your pencil. You can use it for that too. So these are great. We have 2 of them right now, but I'll order some more. Cool. Try using your kneaded eraser. That looks good. I like it.
Then I
think
had
that
to
gave
shade
it more depth.
So I made it and the thing black.
That's okay. The kneaded eraser, you can just kind of squish it and get rid of that black, or you can always just use this is kind of your scrap paper, so you can just clean it off in there. Or on your clothes, if you're like me. Okay. Okay.
So is this supposed to be the pupil?
Nope. That's the eyeball. That's just the practice for the eyeball. But if I can find my notes, I know I made some notes for you guys.
Yesterday. I was
Yeah. Yeah, I know I brought them. I had it up here earlier and now it's just missing because, oh, it's underneath everything. That's why. Okay. Okay, so you can keep practicing your spheres at home. You can really use any round thing that you have, any bowl, anything, a piece of fruit, and an apple. So almost everything that we draw, everything that you want to draw, you can break down into shapes. So learning to draw geometric shapes is it's the most fundamental study that you need to do. And that's why you'll see a lot of like these like artists have like shapes on their wall that they drew in charcoal. That's why, because every art school is going to make you draw shapes. So if you're looking at an eye, if you look at this, your eyeball, let me actually draw it for you guys. So if I take this circle, if you take the second circle on your page, so we're just going to do a construction of an eyeball. So imagine this circle is your eyeball, okay? In the middle of this eyeball, that's going to be where your iris is, but your iris is, the iris is about, if you divide this eyeball into thirds almost, then your iris is going to be about a third looking at the eyeball from the front. So look at your circle and kind of guesstimate 1/3 from the side and 1/3 from that side, and kind of just loosely, roughly, lightly. You can't see that? Let me see if I turn on some lights for you, if that helps.
There's a lot of glare coming down on it from where I'm sitting.
Let me ask Catherine if we can turn these overhead lights off, because I know there's a way, I just don't know how to do it.
No, not really. I found a kit for $16. Has everything in it.
I saw there's like a bookmark for it, and I like to try and force
Is that our closest to the TV? Yeah. There's my turn that roll. No, this one. Other one. Okay, is that better? Thank you. Okay, and then it might help if I plug this light in, huh? I'm trying to turn on a light that's not plugged in. Okay. Now it might work. Okay. Can you guys see it better now? So this is the, I'll draw a little bit darker. So this is the paper that has the 2 circles on it. So this is the circle that we didn't use. And if you don't have one, just draw another circle on, or take your big circle, that's okay too. So you're gonna take this sphere, the circle that I drew, right? Look at the outlines, which is here and here. And then about a third and about a third, mark that spot. And then again, edges here and here. So about a third of the way in and about a third of the way in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just gonna kind of mark the edges of this iris. And the wonderful thing about layering when you're drawing is you don't have to get it right the first time, because you can erase stuff, you can blend stuff, you can smudge it in. So don't obsess about getting it perfect. You don't have to sit there with a ruler and measure it. Just kind of roughly mark it with I'm using an HB. You can also use any of the H pencils. The only reason I'm using an HB is so you guys can see what I'm doing. Normally I'd be using something much lighter.
So we're drawing a little circle. It looks like you're drawing a little, I can barely see it.
Yeah, so I've got the big circle that I drew on the paper. I'm just going to highlight it so you can see it a little bit better.
A small circle and a tiny big circle.
Yep. So you're gonna draw a circle inside the big circle that's about a third the size of the big circle. Does that make sense? Who doesn't understand? I can help you. So hold it up.
I'll show you.
Okay, she's doing good. She's got it. Okay. So that's your eyeball, that's your iris. Now your eye itself, if you kind of drew it's like a little bit in from the corner of your eye is like a little bit in. It's maybe about another quarter of this space. So that would be the corner. Then the other corner is about the same distance on that side. So kind of mark the corners of your eyes. Now also your eye is not, it's not really a straight line. So kind of just draw a line down the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of get a line down the middle. Doesn't have to be straight. So the corner of your eye on the inside is usually a little bit lower than the corner of the eye on the outside. But it also depends on the eye. Not everybody's eye is the same shape. So just kind of get a line, and then, so my eye is going to point that way. So this is going to be the outside corner of the eye. The nose is over here. Really ugly nose. We'll learn how to draw noses too.
Sarah, is there
Yeah.
a way to fix this?
Yeah.
The thingy came out.
Yeah, it's made to come out.
Okay. I just don't want to break it.
Okay, is everybody caught up? Everybody's marked the corners of their eyes. Okay, so your inside corner is a little bit lower than this line, and your outside corner is a little bit higher than this line. So now, depending on the emotion that you're feeling, your eyes, the line of the lid is actually going to cut the eye in different places. But we're just going to draw like a normal eye for now. We're not going to draw a surprise. So surprised eyes, the only one where they're not going to touch the iris. If you're sad, it's more closed. If you're angry, you usually have a shadow. You usually kind of glare at people from underneath your eyelids like that.
We can't see that
Keep
one.
moving to your left.
Angry. There we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm dealing with two cameras. I'm like, I've got to look at that one. Okay, so angry is the only one angry is not the only one. Angry kind of compresses the lid down. You almost don't see the top lid. Happy is going to lift the corners of the eye out and also press the inside in. But we're just going to draw a normal relaxed eye for now. So don't worry about all that. I just wanted to show you that where your eye is cut is going to depend on the emotion that you're trying to show. But we're just going to draw like a chilled out, relaxed eye for now. Okay, so normally on a normal eye, you're going to cut the top of the iris, but you're going to just touch the bottom of the iris with the lid. So you're kind of going to draw that lid from that corner, just kind of come across, cut through the top of the iris, and connect it to the corner. And of course, if you're drawing a specific eye, you'll look at the eye that you're drawing, and you're going to make the shape of the eye. But I'm just drawing a generic eye. It's probably a Caucasian eye. It's just a general bland eye. A stock photo eye. Okay? And then we're going to ignore the tear duct for now, just for now. And you're going to draw the bottom part of the eye, the bottom lid, and you're just going to touch the bottom of the iris and come up and meet the corner. Second runner-up. Cindy's gonna kill me if I lose her bingo balls. Okay. Wow. Yeah, we actually have an outreach bingo program at the
Senior center?
Yeah, that's it. See, other people know things better than I do. Okay, so everybody up to here? Yeah. Cool. And you're using very light lines that you can erase, right?
Hope so.
That's okay. Okay, so use very light lines that you can erase, please. It's okay. This is just a test run. You can do another one after this. This is just to show you the construction of the eye. Now you've got to add the tear duct, right? So the tear duct is actually a very tiny little sphere that goes in the corner here, and it cuts into the eye a little bit. So your tear duct is like a really small little circle that's out here. So we're actually kind of looking at the underlying construction of the eye. So there's a little bit of anatomy, a little bit of math, a little bit of everything involved in being an artist. So that's your tear duct. So you're just going to make a little circle there for the tear duct. And then again, the size of your pupil is also going to depend on how excited you are, how tired you are, if you've been drinking, all kinds of other factors like that. So this is just your basic construction of the eye. Obviously, we're not really going to use the eyeball, except that the eye, the whites of the eye is not white. Because it's a sphere, there's going to be shadows that's going to fall on it, right? If I look at my palette, this is kind of like an eyelid, right? The light's coming from this side, and this is kind of like the upper lid. There's a shadow, and this is kind of like the lower lid. There's some light on it. And then the white part, if I look at it, isn't actually white at all. Maybe it looks white on the screen. Do you see that?
It looks white on the screen.
So this is a little bit more gray than this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is a little bit more white than this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you look at the eye, it's the same. Your bottom lid, where it jots out, is going to catch the light, usually if the light's coming from above. And the top lid, where it jots out, is going to be in the shadow. So, and also, lids are not flat. Skin is thick. It's like leather, it's like cardboard. So let's draw that. So let's make this our first layer. So let's use our brushes or something to just kind of soften up these lines. Actually take your erasers, erase your construction line, this center line that you drew through the middle of the eye. Because we're not going to need that line. We're not going to need most of the eyeball shape, so just kind of lighten it up for me now. You don't have to completely erase it, but just kind of lighten it up. You can use either the kneaded eraser or the vinyl eraser, it doesn't matter for this one. And you're probably going to get rid of this top part of the iris too, because you don't need that anymore. So now I'm going to use a light pencil, like I'm maybe going to use an HB, and I'm going to imagine the light's coming from the top, and how would I shade this bowl? But we're just going to shade it lightly, right? Because the space around your eyes, if I look at an eye, can you see this eye? There we go. Better? Yeah. So the space around your eye, there's going to be a bit of a shadow down here, right? Because that's if you poke at your face, I don't know if any of you have ever sat and poked at your face, but it's a fun activity to find out the structure of your face. But poke at your face, and you'll feel where that bone is, right? So that bone's going to make a shadow. Your eyebrow is going to make a shadow. So this is round, right? Your eyebrow comes out round. So there's going to be a shadow underneath it. So we can kind of leave that circle there just to imagine where that shadow is going to go, where that ridge is of the eye socket almost. Okay, so now you're going to take a light pencil like an HB, and you're going to draw the thickness of your lid. So you're going to kind of define the edge of your upper lid on the inside. And you're gonna make a thicker or a second line that runs next to it. That's going to be the edge of your upper lid. Can you see that? Can you see? Yeah, you can see that on the screen. And then you're going to do the same thing at the bottom, but the bottom one drops below. So it's not going to cut into the eye, it's going to go below the eye. So you can define that first inner line and then draw a second line. That's the bottom lid.
How is the bottom different from the top?
For now, it's not.
Okay.
So the top, it doesn't really matter if you drop this top lid into the eye, into the almond that you drew, or if you draw it above it. But for the bottom one, you definitely want to draw it below. That's what I said. You definitely don't want to cut that bottom lid up because you've already just touched the iris. And then you can take a darker pencil, like maybe a 4B or an HB. Oh, my battery's running low. Okay. Did I bring a charger?
If you have Android or iPhone.
No, it's for the computer. I'm gonna
Oh.
go grab one real quick in the back. I know I have one, I just forgot to bring it out. I'll be right back.
Bulging eye syndrome.
Yes,
Have you seen the commercials for that?
yes.
Yeah.
That's, my eye has that disease.
I'm gonna have to listen to that for next week. My mom's not registered.
So you can use a darker pencil, like one of your Bs, one of your high number Bs, and make that shadow or that line, the inside line of the lid, make it dark.
Yeah, I think I saw 6 pieces.
Yeah, we've got everything. We've got up to an 8B, so you can use a 4B, 6B, 5B. It doesn't really matter. So you're actually going to make this inside line of the eye, of the lid, dark. Don't push very hard, but define that line. I don't want you to trace grooves into your paper, but you do want to define that line. And define a line doesn't necessarily, I don't have to draw my lines in one sweeping line. I can draw a defined line by going back on itself and still have control over it. So remember, we can always erase. Okay, so that's layer 1, and then I also want you to go and draw the upper lid. So remember, this is a sphere, and this is a bunch of skin above that's folded in on itself, right? So if you close your eye over if you close your lid over your eyeball, then there's a bowl there, right? But now when you fold it open, it's like fabric that folds in on itself. So that's what this is. So it's useful to remember what this crease is. It's a piece of fabric that's folded in on itself. So it's maybe a halfway or a third of the way between the edge of your eyelid and the top of the eyeball. So if I take this space from the top of the eyeball to the eyelid and I divide it in half, or maybe a little bit less than half, that's about where my line of my crease is going to be. And the crease doesn't touch the corners. Okay? So there's a space between the corner of the eye and the crease, and the corner of the eye and the crease. So just kind of roughly draw that in there. And then, who doesn't have a brush yet? Who doesn't have a brush or a smudging stick yet? You have a smudging stick though. You can use either a brush or a smudging stick.
We do have
Okay. And a smudging stick. Okay. So I want you to, okay, you don't have a brush or a smudging stick?
Sarah, did you say to outline both of the lids, the 2 lines for the upper lid and 2 lines for the lower lid, or just the inner one?
Just the inner ones. I just want you to define the inner ones.
She skipped dinner and she was like, I'll be fine.
Yeah, eat before you come. It's a long, 2 hours is a long time to be
I
focusing.
told her. She doesn't
Anybody
care.
else? Okay.
We got to take the dog out soon anyways.
So now we're gonna start softening up some of these lines. So I actually want to use my smudging thingy. So you're just gonna soften up this line, this dark line that you drew here. This is a shadow, because there's a shadow. Oh, sure. Sure. Where did I put them though? Okay, so you can use either the smudge stick or you can use your brush. You can try both. But we're kind of gonna get rid of some of the starkness of some of these lines. Yeah.
Sarah, smudger.
Smudger? Yeah. There's more smudgers. Do you prefer the rolled paper or the compressed?
Roll is fine enough.
Can I sand mine down?
Yeah.
Here's a second. Thank you. Sure.
So go one, yeah. Go one way. So you're gonna blend this shadow a little bit. And you're gonna start defining the shape of the whites of the eye. Because it's a bowl, it's a sphere. It's not, the whites of the eye is never truly white. Don't worry, I know it looks really dark now, but once you add more definition in, it's not going to look that dark. And then while you're at it, this tear duct, shade that too. Just soften up that, that line. And you can also soften up the edges of your iris. And soften up this line. The only lines that you're not going to soften right now are the top and the bottom of your lid. Does anyone have any questions or need any help with anything? I hate that sound. I hate that sound.
The one I'm making?
That sound of like smudging sticks, I hate that sound.
Squeaky little.
It's like chalk on the blackboard. Nails on chalkboard?
Yes, that's this Okay, good. And remember, remember, you can always do this, practice this again at home, or if you want to come in and sit at one of the computers and practice it, you can do that too. Okay, so now that you've softened up all of your edges, I want you to take a darker colored pencil. Actually, sorry, not a darker colored pencil. Take a lighter colored pencil. And we're going to start shading in the edges of the eyelid. Remember, we're imagining that the light's coming from the top. So the sides of the eyelid, if I look at my bowl with my light coming from the top, anything that's on the side is a little bit darker than what's on the top. So the same is going to be true for this eyelid here. So what's on the side is going to be a little bit darker than what's on top. Does that make sense? So I'm going to take a harder pencil. So this is a 3H, and I'm just going to shade that in. And your pencil strokes matter because you're never going to erase all of them. But here you're drawing folded skin. So you can kind of draw it in the direction that skin would fold. Don't push very hard. You want to use a light touch here. And then the same thing underneath the eye, right? Your eyeball is coming up and around. So there's going to be a shadow underneath the eye. So I want you to start shading in a little bit, very lightly with a light pencil beneath the eye. And there's also, if you've spent any time looking in the mirror, there's all these little fine lines underneath your eye too, right? Women are very scared of them, but they tell stories. So you're just lightly shading in around the edges. And then you can use your soft brush to just lighten, soften up those lines. You might want to check that your brush doesn't have any dust on it first, so you're not adding a whole bunch of dark to your drawing. And this is rough. This is not, don't be super perfectionist about this. It's loose and light. Okay. The next thing you're going to do, usually somewhere in the eye, there's going to be a little spot where the light catches the eye. So I want you to decide where that spot is. If your light's coming from the top, it's probably around here, and I want you to just loosely draw a circle for where the light's going to catch the eye. So we're going to leave this circle white. We're not going to color this in, just because you guys are beginners. You might not have full control of your brush right now, and I don't want you to draw grooves in the paper in that spot and then not be able to erase it later. Later on you might be able to just draw there and then erase it, but for now you're just going to leave that spot blank. You can choose the size. It can be big, it can be small, but just draw like a rough little circle. Then we're going to draw the pupil. So the pupil is about, again, 1/3 of the iris. So if you look at the edge of the iris and you make a line about 1/3 of the way in on both sides, and then you can't see the top of the iris here anymore, so you're gonna have to just go from the bottom. So you can actually use your pencil to measure. So you can take that distance is the same distance from here, and that's where I make my line. And then I know that distance is the same distance from here to here, and that's where I'm going to make my line. And then I'm going to kind of roughly draw my pupil here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And don't draw it through your light spot. Leave your light spot plain white. So you're just kind of going to roughly draw the iris in. And don't worry if it's not perfect. After you, your pupil in. After you shade the iris, you're not going to even be able to see if the pupil isn't round. It's not going to really matter. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and shade in that pupil with the darkest pencil you have. This is a 4B, but you might want to use your 8B your 7B or your 6B. This is obviously going to be the darkest spot on your eye. And now it's starting to actually look like an eye, hopefully. And if it's not a perfect eye, that's okay too. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to use one of the medium pencils, like an HB or 2B or 2H or B. And you're going to draw lines. So it goes from the iris to the edge. Sorry, from the pupil to the edge of the iris. Don't make them perfect. Don't make them exactly. You're just going to draw a few of them just so you see the direction that they're going in, and then roughly. So different lengths from the pupil. Don't push very hard. And then different lengths starting from the outside of the iris, and again, don't push very hard. Don't make grooves in your paper. And then, guess what? We're going to erase those lines with one of these smudgy stickies.
And were all of your lines from the pupil to the edge or not?
No, I actually made different. Some of my lines were, I used the 2B, I think. Some of my lines started from the pupil and went like halfway or a third of the way in, and then stopped. And then some of them started here and only went a little ways in and then stopped, and some of them went like halfway. That's how you create that roundness to the iris, because the iris is actually, it's like a ring, it's like an elastic that contracts. It's not like a flat disc that sits there.
Now what are you doing?
So once I'm done with my lines, I take my smudge stick or my brush, and I actually go, and now you're going to go perpendicular to those lines, so in the opposite direction to those lines, and you're going to soften them up and blend them. So now you're actually creating that depth in the iris and shading it in. And this is just the first layer. But it's starting to look like an eye. And it's starting to look round.
And you said move the smudger.
Perpendicular.
Yeah, perpendicular to your line. So I'm actually going in a circle with my smudger around the iris. And actually there's the line between your pupil and your iris, you can soften that line up too. Because it's not a hard line. If you actually look at somebody's eye, it's very rarely a hard line between their pupil and the iris.
What hardness did you recommend for the lines?
I used a medium hardness, so a 2B. I prefer softer pencils personally. I like the dark Bs. I almost never use H pencils unless I'm shading skin.
Okay.
But it's up to you. It depends on what range you want to work in. But I'd go with a medium hardness for whatever range you're using.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's pay some attention to this tear duct. So like we said,
So I have one question.
Mhm.
How did you get the inner squiggly lines from the center? You shaded that in, how did you get the inner squiggly
pronounced lower lid. Looks good.
Yeah. Oh no, you're right, I had it wrong.
No, it's not wrong. It's there's
That's how it's.
you actually have very pronounced lower lid, so that's probably why you're drawing it that way. We tend to draw what we know and what looks like us. Yeah?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Around my pupil all looks uniform, and it looks like, how do you kind of like get where there's more like roundness?
So you made most of your lines run all the way through, so just make a lot more lines coming just out of the pupil. And you can also, like, your pupils, it looks like it's a little compressed, so you can also round it out a little bit. And you can use the lines to do that, which is good. Feel almost in there. Looks good though. Your pupils huge. Did yours eat some wild mushrooms that it found in the field?
There's a whole backstory.
Like it, very good. Looks good. I like it. It reminds me of who's that artist? I'll look it up and show you next time. Looking good. Very good. So you can actually have the pupil touching this, but not going over it. So you're kind of hugging that light spot. So the light spot is.
You're looking down.
Hmm? Oh, he's looking down? That's fine. That's okay.
She's looking around.
Looks good. Very nice, very nice. Okay.
Excuse.
That's fine. It's a process. It's the journey, not the destination. Okay. So once we're there, it looks like everybody's there. Let's pay attention to this tear duct. So the tear duct it's a sphere, but a part of this sphere is covered. So this upper lid, so take one of your darker pencils. So I'm going to use a 4B because I think that's what I made this line with. So I'm going to continue this line to about the edge of the tear duct.
Which pencil did you use?
I used a 4B because this is the same pencil that I used for this line on the inside of the lid. But it doesn't, you just want a darker pencil, so a softer pencil, essentially. So my cursor is in the middle of the screen. I didn't even realize that. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's far, you're really far away. Yeah.
And what did you say we're supposed to do?
So you want to extend this inner lid's line, the shadow of the inner lid, you want to extend that to the edge of the tear duct. Because your tear duct isn't entirely visible. It's a sphere, but it's not entirely visible. Parts of it is kind of hidden behind your eyelid. Wait, my sense of time is just, okay, we've got another 37 minutes or so. My sense of time is screwed up. I have ADHD. So, I have a terrible sense of time. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to also take, so your tear duct is kind of that shape, right? And your bowl of your tear duct runs kind of like that. So you've drawn the top part of it, so you're going to just kind of roll it up and meet the bottom shadow of the inside of the bottom lid, but you're cutting off part of the sphere that you drew. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then there's actually a little, so there's this, you can actually define this inner edge of that tear duct sphere, but then there's also this little muscle that runs next to it. So you can kind of lightly draw in that little muscle there. And different people have different sized tear ducts. Some eyes you'll look at have really large pronounced tear ducts, and some of them are like teensy tiny. So, okay, and then all of this is actually darker than the white spot next to the eye. So you're kind of gonna just use your darker colored pencil and just shade around the edges of both of these, because you're casting a shadow with this lid here and here. So you're going to draw that shadow in lightly, and then you're going to use either your smudge stick or your fine brush, and you're just going to soften that shadow up and define that line and that line with your smudge stick or I should say soften up that line and that line with your smudge stick. And then you can take your eraser and you can actually erase the part of the teardrop that you drew around the lid. So you might want to use your kneaded eraser and make it into a fine point and use that point to get rid of that. There is a slight shadow and texture that kind of stays there. But
We gotta go take the dog out, so
okay,
we'll watch the rest on,
sure. Yeah.
on demand.
Yeah, you can do that. You can take your portfolios with you or you can leave them
No, we're
here.
gonna practice at home.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody else can stay. They're just gonna let their dog out. You don't. Class is not over. They gotta go already. But if you want to leave, I'm also not gonna be offended about it.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Okay. So now that's our first layer of our eye. So you can actually go and man, I left my ugly nose here. So you can go and you can erase the rest of the eyeball if you want. You don't really need that anymore. I was mostly just so you can see where the shading goes. Don't erase it completely. Leave like a trace of it.
There it goes again. No, I can't.
Okay, I'll take that.
Please do. I don't know what's going on.
Hold on, that's okay. It's probably the elastic's fault. We'll blame the elastic. Keep it up here. Okay. So you want to leave that outline that, I don't know if you guys can see it on that screen, but I can still see my outline a little bit on mine. Okay. So then you can kind of take a darker pencil and you want to go redefine this crease, because this crease is actually pretty deep and pretty dark. So you can go redefine this eye crease with a darker pencil. And then the top lid actually crosses over the bottom lid. So the bottom lid kind of runs into the top lid in the corner, if that makes sense. So if I magnify the corner of the eye here, so if that's the corner of the eye, that's the corner of the eye, the top lid goes down and the bottom lid actually runs into the top lid when you look at it. Does that make sense? So this is the eyeball here, this is the bottom lid, and that's the top lid. So I'm just going to extend this top lid down, and you can actually extend this down too. Most of that's going to get covered up by your eyelashes. And then you can take a darker color and you can redefine this the outer edge of the upper lid, if that makes sense. I use words weird sometimes, partially because I'm foreign and partially because I have ADHD, and partially because I'm an artist and I refuse to be contained by your language rules. So, and you can also go soften that up, because even though it's a shadow, it's still skin. So now we kind of get to the point where we want to look. I kind of want to show you guys an actual eye now. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to show look at an actual eye. So I love Pinterest because there's lots and lots of pictures. Okay. So if I look at this black and white photograph of an eye, you guys can see that I'm going to use my mouse. Go big. No. Okay. So you can see that there's like a little shadow in the corner here of the lower lid. And that the upper lid is also casting a shadow at the top of the eyeball and at the top of the iris. So we're going to go fill those shadows in. So I'll switch back to my camera view. So you want to use a darker color. So you're going to go fill in this shadow. It's just the corner of this lower lid. And you're also going to darken up the space underneath the top lid. So that's one of those art myths that I've heard people say, if you're looking at pictures, you're not a real artist, is my response to that. Da Vinci, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, all of them looked at actual, Leonardo, every art, like name your favorite artist, they used references, I guarantee it. So
They use like iPhones and stuff.
no, not iPhones and stuff, but models, like live models.
Da Vinci digged up dead bodies to look at muscle structure.
That's true. He cut up cadavers, that's true.
You still want to be, what do you call it, one of the people that discover things like ancient bones and treasures and stuff like
An
that.
archaeologist?
Yeah, you just want to be an archaeologist. But first I was electronics assembly, and then archaeologist. But my first love was art, even before all that.
I actually studied ancient cultures, which is a completely useless degree, don't do that. Ancient cultures and English literature. So then you can go soften up that shadow. You don't have to. If you don't want to soften it up, you can keep the texture, but I'm going to soften mine up. Also the outsides of my iris. So the outsides of the iris are darker at the top because of that shadow that the upper lid casts. The whole iris is actually darker at the top. So if you want to continue that shape, the structure of the lines, you can do that.
So you have that extra darker, really dark pencil, I only had softer pencil.
What number do you want?
I'm gonna have the dark ones like what you're using for the
18?
outline. So all mine will look better.
I think they're gone, so the whole set can be redistributed.
See, all these are good.
Yeah, this whole tin is
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Oh, you guys didn't know that
I
these
didn't
tins
I didn't know
were-
that, I didn't know what that was. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know.
This tin is mostly,
Okay.
so the really dark ones are the
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, really. What order were they in?
I probably should have said that in orientation. Okay.
That's my fault.
That's okay. So then the other thing is that the lid, let me show you again. I don't want you to take my word. Because part of what I'm trying to teach you here is to look with your eyes and not what you think. So if you look at this top lid, the shadow of the crease stops here, but then it kind of, that line continues down here, but it continues on her eye, it continues as a highlight. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Different eyes might look different. Sometimes that actually continues as a crease. So if we, I guess this is a drawing of an eye, but in this one, you can see it continues as a crease down. So let's stick with the one eye that we've been looking at. So let's draw her eye. So you might want to use a lighter color then, if we're going to continue this crease down. So just kind of...
You can't see what you're doing.
So, oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to continue this down, and I'm just going to use a light color for now, because I'm going to actually redefine it with my shading. So I'm going to use my shading, I'm going to bring my shading down.
And a lighter one would be like
I'm using a 3H. So any of your H's or your mediums, like your HB, or your 2, I'd say darkest 2B for this. I like to render skin with H pencils and brushes, but everybody has their different preference. And then you're gonna, again, blend out your shading. And if you decide that you wanna make this crease look more like her crease, and you wanna soften up part of the crease here, you can do that too. And then you can also diffuse some of your shading here. Diffuse some of your shading here. So I'm actually going to clean up my nose now, my joke nose. I'm not gonna go heavy into detail on how to draw a nose, but I am. Yeah, we can do a lesson on noses. I think a nose is a good one to look at when we're doing when we're talking about geometric shapes. So just for the sake of showing the lights coming from the top, my eyebrow is going to be around up here, and my eyebrow tends to it's not really a rainbow, it's more like a line that comes down, and we'll talk about the structure of the eyebrow in more detail, but just roughly I'm going to draw my eyebrow in. So my nose is roughly going to be about there.
Pencil, a medium pencil?
So right now I'm just roughly drawing, so I'm using a medium or a light pencil. I'm using a 3H. So I'm just for myself, for my reference, since this is a close-up of an eye, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just kind of structuring the shading around the eye for myself a little bit. So since there's a ridge here and there's a bump here, there's going to be a shadow in here. So I'm kind of just drawing in that shadow a little bit. We're focusing on the eye, so we're not going to do too much on the surroundings today. We don't have the time for all that. I'm hoping that by the end of the month we can do a self-portrait. Do you like that idea? Do you hate that idea?
4 lessons?
It's not as hard as you think. So maybe by the end of this month or maybe next month we can do a self-portrait. So that's kind of what I'm trying to build towards right now.
Our own self-portraits, or there's going to be one object that we all do?
I think we can bring in a mirror and do ourselves, because that's really good practice for drawing from a life, from something from life. Every famous artist throughout history, almost every famous artist has done a self-portrait, so it's like very high art to do a self-portrait. It's not just like craft. Nothing wrong with craft, but I like art. I like fine art also. So I think it's a fun project, and it's not that hard. I'm actually working, I'll show you guys what I'm working on. And I tested the theory by drawing that. That's the basic structure of the face. So we're going to start similar to how we started with the basic structure of the eye. I don't even know if you can see that, but yeah, I'm working on making some step-by-step how to draw a face for you guys. So we'll learn all the different components first. We'll learn how to draw an eye, we'll learn how to draw a nose, we'll learn how to draw a mouth, and then we'll put it all together and learn how to draw a face. So yeah, I think we'll draw a closed mouth to start off with. We'll start with a closed off mouth. Okay, I'm actually going to take this out because I'm smudging my drawing. Okay. So this is also part of texture and line. Like, you don't have to make every part of your picture perfect. So you can kind of make your eye perfect and then like really roughly draw the skin around it. That's fine too. But just for the sake of this class, we're going to just kind of blend this in and soften it up. And again, remember, we have the sphere. This whole thing is a sphere. So the sides of it are going to be a little bit darker than the top, right? Remember that. And then this is a crease. So the underside of it is going to be a little bit darker because it's the brow, right? It's folded up fabric, essentially. If you look at my rolled up sleeve, right? The underside of it's a little bit darker. You see what I'm saying? So the same thing here. This is like a rolled up sleeve. So I'm gonna use a slightly softer pencil, like a 2B, and I'm just gonna kind of shade the underside of this rolled up flap of skin that is our eyelids. Faces are weird, but fun.
You're doing that above the line?
Yeah, so this is the crease line. So I'm actually shading a little bit in,
I can't stop yawning, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'm not offended. You do you. Kind of shading into the corners, because this is a sphere. There's a sphere here, so the sides are a little bit darker. Also, there's a ridge here, so that's going to cast a shadow. And this is a rolled up sleeve. And then I'm going to make this a little bit darker, because now it looks too light in comparison to next to it. The edges of my lid. And then, of course, we're going to go soften everything up. And so since the face that we were looking at, the eye that we were looking at, she had a highlight right here, I'm going to use my eraser to draw the highlight in. And you can use your kneaded eraser if you want a specific shape, or if you're like, oh, I want to just kind of lighten this up a little bit. It's great for just like rolling in highlights in certain areas. So like, okay, I want to roll a highlight in here. Roll in a highlight there. And now I like to take a really sharp pencil. Like I've actually got one of these, I don't know what you call this in English, mechanical pencil. And this has got, I love this, it's a Uni A-Gel. You can only, it's like a Japanese brand. The Japanese make great drawing tools. This has got 4B lead in it, so I like to use this for something like that. You can also just sharpen one of your dark colored pencils, like a 4B or something. There are pencil sharpeners up here. Or you can find one that's still sharp. Or you can look at it and go, there's the tip. I'm just going to use that tip. And you're actually going to use that and you're going to go redefine this inner edge, because this is going to be a shadow. And you're going to go redefine this upper edge sharply. But now let's actually look at our picture before we do that, because I'm trying to teach you to look with your eyes. So her inner edge is actually not defined, but her outer edge is. So I'm going to erase that a little bit. Oh, I'll show you my drawing. Sorry. So I'm actually going to go erase this a little bit, because there's no, I don't see the line there, right? So instead of defining it, I'm going to make it lighter. And then I'm going to start drawing the shadow underneath the bottom lid. Because this is, we said it's like leather or cardboard, it's thick, right? So there's a shadow under here. Because this is folding out and this is down, right? This is the bottom. Where did my bingo balls go? Oh, Cindy's going to kill me. Oh, there we go. So this is the bottom of the bingo bowl, right? There's a shadow there. So I'm starting to add the shadow underneath the...
And what thickness is the pencil?
I'm using a 4B right now. You don't have to use a 4B. But I'm using like a darker pencil because I want this to be a pretty stark shadow right here. And I'm actually going to extend this corner, and I'm actually going to shade in this whole corner is going to go darker. So my lines kind of disappear into darkness here almost, if that makes sense. And then, of course, I'm going to go blend everything in. She looks like she didn't get enough sleep. But it's actually not going to look that way when it's done. It just looks that way now because she doesn't have eyelashes. She or he. Maybe it's a he. And then I'm also going to blend in this corner that I made dark here. So you see how some of my lines are actually starting to vanish? Like some of the lines are there, some of them are not there. Oh, and then something else I wanted to do was this tear duct. It's going to have like a little spot that's almost a highlight. So I'm going to erase that little highlight with my kneaded eraser pulled into a point. Like lightly, don't make it super light, just like a dab will do it. And now I'm going to use the same point and I'm going to redefine the outline of my iris because my iris actually does have a pretty distinct outline. So I'm going to use the sharp dark pencil or my mechanical pencil and I'm going to redefine the outline of my iris. So now is the time to fix any circles that aren't circles. And then I'm going to draw a few more of these short little lines on the edge of my iris with my dark color. Don't make them all the same length. You want to make them different lengths. A few of them will go through. And then a few of them will be around the pupil too. A few of the shorter lines. So that's giving my iris a lot more shape. It's giving more depth to the whole picture because we keep doing the same thing over and over and over in layers. This one we're not going to soften up though. This we're gonna leave. You can get real intricate with this. Some people have these like kind of like zigzags going through the middle of their iris. I'll show you what I mean. Looks like electricity. So she's not a very good example. Oh, let me just save this eye. Okay, yeah, save it to eye and then take me to eye. So, oh, I actually do have that eye saved. So if you look at this eye, okay, not that eye, I guess. Oh, if you look at this one, you can see there's like these light colored lines that are kind of running through. You can, if you wanted to, go take, if I can find my little mono eraser. That's the problem with having too much stuff. Too many tools. So you could, if you wanted to, get like real intricate, go draw some of those things on there. You don't have to. That's just gravy. You can also go make some like slightly lighter spots in this. You don't have to use the tiny eraser. You can use this pulled into a tip and then just kind of make a few highlights. You're just gonna make them in the bottom half of the iris. So you're gonna lift some of those areas up to just get more light into the bottom part of your iris. Most of the top part is gonna be in the shadows, since our light's coming from above. If you guys want to know more about theory, you're welcome to ask me, but I think learning it through practice is more fun. Okay, so now I think we're at a point where we can actually go draw in some lashes. I just need to give this poor video a break. Okay, so for the lashes, lashes don't stand like that. They don't all go in the same direction. I'll prove it. If you look at her lashes, they crisscross, right? They clump. She's probably wearing mascara, but they clump into little points. Even the bottom ones where she's not wearing mascara, they're in like little tufts, like grass, right? Oh, we've got about 10 minutes left before we gotta wrap it up. So our eye, the one that we're drawing, that we're using for a reference, also has little clumps of lashes. So you're gonna draw your lashes in clumps. And they start from, pay attention real quick, the bottom lid, they start from the outside of the crease. And on the upper lid, they kind of go across into the eye almond. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll show you another example that's a little bit clearer. And
Across the layer of skin on the upper.
yeah, so I want to just get a closer close up. Okay, so this one's not wearing mascara. Yeah, so on the upper lid, they go into the shape of the eye, right? They cross over that double lid that you drew. On the bottom, they don't. They just go down. Not down, they kind of go out. So they point also towards the outer corner of the eye. They're not straight, they're curved. You see that? And the ones on the inside point towards the inside. The ones in the center are curved, but they point down. So let's draw our lashes onto our eye. And once you draw the lashes, it pretty much looks like an eye. So you're going to use a really dark pencil for this, the darkest pencil you have. You want to kind of have it sharp if you can. So my 8B is not very sharp, so I'm probably going to go with like a 5B just because I don't want to sharpen it right now. Or a 6B. My 6B's got some points on it. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of define where my lashes go. So I'm just going to draw a few. So I'm actually going to draw one here, and it almost touches to the top. I'm going to draw one that points out here. So it's about the same length as that one. I'm going to draw one, the bottom ones are shorter, that point out to the corner there. I'm going to draw one that points out here. I'm going to draw one that points out there. And you might want to make your first round of lashes lighter. And you can be like whimsical with them. Like really like letting them kind of go lighter towards the tips. If you see what I'm doing there. Like you don't want to make a lash and lift your hand. It's much better to kind of let them go crazy. So I'm kind of just defining the direction that my lashes are going to go. I'm kind of drawing my clumps where they're going to be, and then they're going to cross over. They're going to clump together. And then again, some of them are going to be bent in a different direction. Some of them, they don't follow your ideas of what lashes should look like. So for this one, we want to be a little bit more, that lash is a little long. I could erase it, or I could just draw a few longer lashes in to kind of balance it out. So you want to be careful not to space them too evenly. You want to space them sort of together. You want to kind of let them be wild in places. And also, you can turn your paper. It's kind of hard, the direction that I'm doing it, and kind of makes it hard. But turning your paper might make it easier. So you can, whatever direction your hand wants to make those lines in. And some of these bottom lashes are just going to be suggestions of lashes. They're not actually going to, you're not actually going to see the whole lash. Especially some of the bottom ones, but some of the top ones too. So. And don't be scared to keep adding layers, letting them crisscross. And then you can go add anything that you want to. Oh, the last thing is if your light's coming from the top, then your lashes are actually going to cast some shadows over here into your little eye highlights. So, and those aren't going to be perfect either. They're going to be kind of rough. So you can kind of draw some lash shadows on your eye. Okay, that's it for today. That's our eye. We're pretty much out of time. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was fun. I hope you like. Oh, pull out your eye drawing from earlier.
Oh, gosh.
Hold it next to the eye that you just drew. Befores and afters, okay? Yeah. So nothing worth doing is easy. Yeah, that's why we did it, so you could see that she actually made some progress. It doesn't matter how unhappy you are with the final drawing, it's better than the one you started with, right? Yeah. So
How do you clean this?
to clean that, you're gonna use the sandpaper and you're gonna pull it along the sandpaper. So start there and pull it back. Two there, turn it, and you're turning it each time. So that's how you clean those. There's 3 of these things floating around. There's my one and the 2 locked ones. So if you want to be kind and help me clean them, that would be awesome, but you totally don't have to. And then this will be up on the website sometime later this week if you want to keep practicing. If you want to use the paper with the single circle on to really go draw like a nice final eye, you can do that. You don't have to. But anything that you draw, it's yours. You can keep it in your portfolio, and when you're done, you can have like a nice portfolio. Yes?
The eyelashes, are they good to have all the time of them, or is it